It's Wednesday. Dallas Goedert's back. Rich Hofmann is here. Welcome to the PHLY Eagles show. I'm Zach Berman. That's Rich Hofmann. We're brought to you by TrueMark Financial Credit Union. We thought we were going to have just a typical midweek mailbag, although a mailbag's not typical here on the PHLY Eagles show. We were going to celebrate.
It is when we're both here, Zach.
Exactly. We were celebrating the final day of Bo Wolf's paternity leave. And then the Dallas Goedert news happens. So we'll start with that at the top. You can see on our feed, Fran Duffy and I spoke about that on an emergency show, but that was like 10 to 12 minutes. And we have more time to get into it here. We also have so many questions from the audience that we will that we put together. Some Goddard related, some roster related questions, some Jihaad Campbell questions, a few Cowboys questions, and some non-football fun that we'll get into. But I'm curious your thoughts at the start when this news came down. Dallas Goedert back for the 2025 season, brought his salary down from $14.25 million to $10 million. What were your thoughts?
I think my first thought, Zach, is that was this just an off-season story that was meant to get Eagles fans like myself all worked up that was going to be okay at the end of the day, right? Because we have no football to talk about, even though we have a loaded roster on this team and really some first world problems, I would term them as. This was just going to turn out this way. But as you've said, like the Eagles, they made him like roughly available, and they said to Dallas Goedert, like Josh Sweat last year, go see what your market is. And I was a little bit worried that they were going to follow through with that. But ultimately, after all of the hand wringing from yours truly in particular, they settled on the outcome that I wanted, which is Dallas Goedert is back in Philadelphia. And I want him to be the tight end until either he proves that he's not this level of player anymore, or he can't physically do it, or they have like an actual succession plan in place for him. So for the 2025 Philadelphia Eagles, I'm pretty happy right now that Dallas Goedert is back on the Josh Sweat plan, taking a little bit of a pay cut for the last year of his contract.
Yeah, Goddard was very much available, and it did not appear that he was coming back. I see in the chat, Peter McCarthy says, Zach, very wrong on Goddard. Peter, I'm going to tell you, like the prevailing sentiment was that he wasn't going to return, and this was a very real thing. As I outlined, going into free agency, I said the best, what Howie Roseman should do is float Goddard out there and see if they can find a trade, because I knew the Eagles didn't want to pay him the $14.25 million, and then if they couldn't find a deal to bring him back on the Josh Sweat plan, that's actually documented in that 25-step guide that I did, and that's essentially what happened here. Now, a few things. The market was not what they thought it was going to be. I don't think this was bluff calling. I see that in the chat. I don't think this was bluff calling. When Bo's back tomorrow, he might disagree. I think there was motivation to move him, but there wasn't necessarily the contract offer elsewhere that I think would entice Goddard to go somewhere else. There wasn't the compensation that really compelled the Eagles to push through on it. And the scenario in place here is what you said, the Josh Sweat plan. Now, the difference, of course, is Josh Sweat was going to be 28. Dallas Goedert's going to be 31, right? And so you're less desirable on the market at 31 than at 28. But Dallas Goedert had to take a pay cut to stay. Like that's the reality of this situation. If this was just an off-season story, Dallas Goedert would be back at the $14.25 million. So this was both sides exploring it, but it became pretty clear post-draft because, for instance, Indianapolis was a team that was interested. Denver was a team that was interested. Well, the Colts got Tyler Warren. The Broncos signed Evan Ingram on the open market, right? So it becomes a game of musical chairs, and there wasn't really a seat left that made sense for Goddard, and the best football situation was staying here with the Eagles.
I just think, like, however the Eagles were posturing and however this was working behind the scenes, to me, I care less about that than just the result of bringing him back. And once there was not a high draft pick spent on the tight end position, I just felt like this had to happen. And look, I am sure Dallas Goedert in October is going to go on the 4-week IR. Like I'm sure Grant Calcaterra is going to get a bunch of snaps at some point, and he probably, this meaning Goddard, he's probably going to deal with an injury later in the year as well. But I just go back to Nick Sirianni. He always says that the passing game on this team runs through 3 guys, and he is one of them. He is a good blocker, especially because it felt like their non-Stoll tight ends last year were just not very good at that. That second Washington game is sticking out in my mind. And he just Zach, he still has the ability to hit the big play. And I know these are only 2 plays, but the Saints play where they ran mesh and they sprung him open, that was like a sneaky, huge play in the season and turning it around. I know they stunk the next week in Tampa, but got them a win when they really weren't at their best at the beginning of the year. And then the stiff arm against Green Bay and what was very much a struggle of a game where he stiff arms Valentine 85 times and scores the touchdown. Like, sure, I will take 4 catches for 49 yards or whatever, but I just want that guy on the team until there is a suitable replacement for him. And that is what happened here. So good for the 2025 Eagles. I also think too, Zach, it makes a difference, like the team context from the difference between last year and this year, where last year, Josh Sweat, he struggled down the stretch of the 2023 season. And really, it wasn't just him. It was the entire defensive line. But we didn't think this was an automatic slam dunk Super Bowl contender last year. Whereas I feel really good about this roster right now. I want to try and maximize this next season because I feel like they have the pieces to compete for another Super Bowl. So that also probably has colored my opinion as well. But yeah, like as far as I am concerned, getting Dallas Goedert back is the best possible solution. He might get hurt. That's fine. But I am feeling much better about this season with Dallas Goedert on the team.
Yeah, and to follow up on something you said there, and that's actually going to lead to our first mailbag question. So Andrew, and we have Andrew producing today. Awesome to have Andrew here. The roster question number 5 will be the first mailbag question. This has to do with Goddard, but I was going to say the delta between Goddard and the number 2 option, which is Calcaterra, is probably a greater delta in my opinion than any spot on the roster. We'll get to that here. So assuming we keep Goddard, this is from Ben K. Ben. Okay, so he saw this coming. Credit to Ben K. Ben. Assuming we keep Goddard, is there a competition for tight end 2, or does Calcaterra have that locked? Okay, so just to kind of lay this out, when you look at the Eagles depth chart, Calcaterra is back as the tight end 2, but he has competition here. The Eagles signed Harrison Bryant. They signed Kylan Granson. They bring back E.J. Jenkins. They have Cameron Latu on a futures deal. They have Nick Muse on a futures deal. They did not add a tight end in the draft. They did not sign an undrafted rookie tight end. So I'll jump in first, and I'm curious your opinion. Yes, there is competition for that tight end 2 spot, in particular, from my opinion, from Harrison Bryant. Harrison Bryant, who the Eagles think he's really developed as a blocker since he came to the NFL. That wasn't something that he did much at Florida Atlantic. So he'll kind of push Calcaterra, but the Eagles do like Calcaterra. Internally, they like the way he's developed. He's going into year 4 here, so I do think he's a front runner to be tight end 2. But I'm curious your thoughts to this question, and also the idea that of all the spots on the roster, maybe left tackle, because the Eagles are still trying to figure out their offensive tackle situation, but like the delta between the starter and the backup might not be greater at any spot than at tight end.
No, I think that's definitely true, Zach, and that's part of the reason I really wanted Goddard back. Talking about Calcaterra in a competition for tight end 2 feels a lot better because, number one, I mean, we've seen him do it on a really good team last year. I think it'll be Calcaterra against Bryant. I don't mind Calcaterra as the second tight end. He had the play that stands out to me for some reason is that awesome fumble recovery against Washington. It was Goddard who actually fumbled the ball or whatever. Calcaterra, Johnny on the spot, hustling to make the play. That's the type of thing I want to remember Calcaterra for, right? I know he made some catches during the season. The Eagles won some games when he was the primary tight end. So yeah, I think he has the inside track on the job, but it's not like he has it locked down.
Yeah, good point there. So So the future of the tight end position, though, is very much in play here, or is very much a topic that is worth exploring. This is a 2025 move. This bolsters the Eagles for 2025, no doubt about it. The Eagles don't have a tight end under contract, I believe, beyond this season. I need to check EJ Jenkins' deal. Well, the future contracts players might be different, but like Calcaterra is going into a contract year. Obviously, Harrison Bryant, Kylan Granson signed the 1-year deals.
1-year deals.
You have Goddard going into the final year of his deal, so there isn't a succession plan at tight end. And
they need to get on that at some point.
Yeah. And so if they're checking out Fran Duffy's mock draft, which is on his way too early, although it's never too early for a 2026 mock draft on allphly.com, be a diehard to read it. You see he has the Eagles going tight end. I'm curious too. Kyle Pitts is going to be a free agent next year. At some point, if I keep bringing it up, Howie might be tuning in on YouTube and be like, oh, that's an interesting idea. Bring Kyle Pitts home. But we'll see what happens with the future of the tight end spot. But we don't need to worry about 2026 right now. For 2025, what's clear is the Eagles are a better football team with Dallas Goedert than without him.
Real quick, your Pitts love aside, I do think that's a good point, though, because as you and Bo have talked about a lot, there has normally been a succession plan through the draft, right? Where you draft the guy a year or two early, he gets to play with the other tight end for a couple of years, and then he eventually takes over when he can handle that responsibility. That has not happened yet. So they might have to go the free agency route and do something different for that reason. And like you said, nobody's under contract for next year. I mean, they could take a tight end maybe in the first round and hand that over, that position over to that guy next year, but that would be un-Eagles-like, I would say. So yeah, they might have to do this differently.
It's definitely going to be something to watch here. I think they were interested in some of the tight ends in this draft, Harold Fannin Jr. in particular, but there was a drop off after Fannin was picked in the 3rd round. It just didn't make sense for the Eagles to go in that direction. Let's stay with kind of the big bodied offensive players here and go to roster question number 1. And this is talk fullback to me. Do you see it being a role where someone is truly dedicated, or a half a position like we saw with a practice squad player or Ben Van Sumeren, H-back style, also power football? Did it contribute to our team's health last season? And this is from Philly Dan in media. So thank you, Philly Dan, for that contribution. We have a number of questions. I want to say priority on the questions came from the Discord. If you're a diehard, you can join our Discord. Also took some questions from Twitter and Blue Sky and the YouTube comments yesterday. So your thoughts here on fullback?
So I know Jeffrey Lurie made some comments recently about resurrecting the fullback position, resurrecting it. First off, Zach, I didn't hear that interview. I believe it was with WIP. Didn't the 49ers just make 2 Super Bowls and 2 conference championship games while playing Kyle Juszczyk like a lot of the game with the 21 personnel? So I don't know, resurrecting the fullback position. I don't really know if the Eagles can take credit for that. As far as what they did last year, I will say I like the Van Sumeren package because it was different, right? It was something new to look at, but it felt, I don't know, kind of, I don't know the exact right word here, maybe gadgety, like inorganic compared to the rest of the offense. It was like, try him out for a few plays on a specific series because we just want to see how this looks instead of reacting to the defense or really hammering it home. So I don't really think it was a huge part of the offense last year. Maybe that changes, right? As you have mentioned a few times when we've been on, they are listing Van Sumeren as a fullback this year, even though we know he comes from the defensive side of the ball and can play special teams as well. I know Ty Robinson got a couple of fridge type snaps at the goal line at Nebraska as well. So I don't really know. I don't really think the Eagles have shown a ton yet in terms of like resurrecting the fullback position, but maybe that changes this year.
Yeah. So some context here. It was on WIP. It was a good interview. It was with John Ritchie and Joe DeCamara. But so John Ritchie, a former fullback, and sure. I think Jeffrey was I don't want to say pandering to. I think he was being personable with John Ritchie there. The Eagles are going to have fullback featured more than they have in the past. I don't think it's. I think it's going to be time to time. I don't think it's going to be a base part of their offense. It is true they listed Van Sumeren as a fullback. Van Sumeren changed his number for the purpose of now he doesn't have to report as eligible every time he's out there. He's in the 40s. But I don't think Jeffrey Lurie was giving away grand plans for the Eagles offense at fullback. But Van Sumeren is the player who will be the fullback in the offense, assuming that he makes the 53-man roster. I know there's people excited from the Ty Robinson film. He did it a few times at Nebraska. I would pay attention to Van Sumeren in that role. As we roll on here, let's knock out. So I'm going to make it difficult for Andrew here. You don't have to post all the questions. Let's put all the Jihaad Campbell questions into one. So if you want to put number 2 on the screen, Andrew, that is the number 2 question. This is from Patrick TF. Why does everyone feel that Campbell will be more effective playing edge instead of stack linebacker? I feel like having Bond and Campbell as multiple threats to rush or cover will make Fangio's defense a nightmare to scheme against pre-snap. But there were multiple questions here, including from Dr. Dingus. Can you provide your understanding of Campbell's potential knee and other shoulder issues that it's been reported some teams had concern with? And then also from Jeff Gamber, will Campbell's primary role be rushing the passer by midseason? And there was also a comment there that thought Jihaad's weakness on tape was a lack of physicality, taking blocks near the line of scrimmage. He was clearly, he said perhaps Vic should alter the scheme so Jihaad is chasing outside instead of clogging up the middle. So we'll kind of combine all of these into one. I'm curious, first off, your thought about Jihaad Campbell's role, and then I'll get into some of the health stuff.
Thank you to Doc D and Co for the questions as well. Yeah, I think I don't have the exact number in my head, but it's not like Zach Bond never lined up on the line of scrimmage last year. It was at least a few times per game, and the Eagles, it gave them a different look with him on the outside, outside of the edge rusher. And I think Fran, from his notes on Campbell, I believe he said Campbell did that 10% of the time at Alabama as well. So that seems like it's roughly in the same ballpark. If you wanted to just transfer over what his role was at Alabama, I feel like he'd be pretty comfortable doing that as well. I'm completely I completely understand that, where Vic Fangio, he loves, especially with the safeties, right, showing the same picture before the snap and then rotating afterwards, right? And confusing things for the quarterback with what looks like a pretty simple defense at the beginning. That is the general idea of the Fangio defense. But I think he can do that with linebackers as well. If you have 2 players in Jihaad Campbell and Zach Bond who have interchangeable skill sets, where both of those guys, they can play good zone coverage on the backside, which was the best part about Zach Bond last year, because nobody knew that he could do that as well as he did, all the way to the Super Bowl when he got an interception. Jihaad Campbell is supposedly pretty good at that as well. That was also in Fran's notes, but he also can rush the passer as well. So the idea that maybe that would be the best spot for him, I understand that, like in terms of Vic Fangio being able to tinker with different looks and confuse the quarterback. I get that. I think people are just excited about the idea of being an edge rusher because that's a more premium position, right? If you have somebody who can sack the quarterback 12 to 15 times a year, that is somebody who can just wreck games for you in a way that I guess Zach Bond was a little bit of a game wrecker in his own way, but in the more traditional way that we know in Philadelphia. And it just provides an element of versatility to Jihaad Campbell as well. So that's where I think that excitement comes from. But the idea that he's playing with Zach Bond most of this year, like Micah Parsons was at the beginning of his career in Dallas, and just confusing the hell out of quarterbacks, that's exciting too. And the idea that that might be the best way to use him, at least initially, I think that very well could be the case.
Yeah, I mean, I do think you're going to see him on the edge a decent amount. Now, I don't think that's going to be his primary role, as I've said with you on previous shows. I said with Fran, and I said with Jamie, that to me, like, the indicator is what's he doing on 3rd and 8, right? Is he running backwards or is he running forwards? And I think on 3rd and 8, he'll be going toward the quarterback more than a typical off ball linebacker would be. I also think the Eagles wouldn't have been as aggressive trying to trade up if they didn't see the pass rushing upside. Now, I think that too often, and Howie said, don't put them in the box. And I think, for those who've made fun of me about the positionless label in the past, I think it's or the positionless craze that I have. The premise of it is this: is like I think too often we try to fit players within the confines of like, I don't want to say antiquated positions, but within like the confines of a position. Whereas if you think about it, and we talk about the Miami Heat, like, put the 11 best defensive players you have on the field, and they can do different things. So Cooper DeJean can do different things in the secondary. Zach Bond, Jihaad Campbell can do different things, at linebacker. And so if you don't need to sub in a specialist, if you have a player who can cover a tight end, who can stuff the run, who can rush around the edge, not just as a blitzer, but rush around the edge, that is appealing. And that, to me, is what Jihaad Campbell allows you to do. The pass rushing ability creates a different dimension to his game. As far as the injury questions, and Fran put up there, I appreciate Fran watching. I appreciate Fran watching. Fran thanked everyone for coming last night. It was awesome. It was, and I've watched a lot of these players, but just hearing Fran contextualize it was really cool. Thanks for everyone who came out. It was Fran had the audience's attention for 3+ hours. That is an accomplishment, right? That is huge. But as Fran said last night, that the questions about the injury were real, and there were teams that either took him off the board or that kind of had him red flagged because of the shoulder questions. There were, as Albert Abrir reported, there were knee questions there. The Eagles feel comfortable this isn't a long-term thing. So the Eagles are willing to be patient because of that. And I think, it is value. Similar. Now, Cooper DeJean, the injury that affected him in training camp last year was different than the pre-draft one. But part of why Cooper DeJean fell was because he was injured during the pre-draft process, and that affects your pre-draft process. Landon Dickerson's an example of a player who fell because there were injury questions. It doesn't always work this way. Sidney Jones, it did not work out. But I think the Eagles saw this as a risk being willing to take. So Dr. D, thank you very much for that question. We answered Jeff Gamber's question. And then as far as Greg Hart, PA, the assistant GM's question, perhaps Vic should alter the scheme so Jihaad is chasing outside instead of clogging up the middle. I think it's important to note Jihaad Campbell is a developing player, and he's relatively unrefined. But I think that you see the tools there. You see the competitive toughness there. The intelligence from everything I understand too. I think instincts are going to develop, but I don't think Vic Fangio needs to adjust to Jihaad Campbell. I think with just more pass rush snaps, more snaps off ball. Jihaad didn't play off ball until he got to Alabama. With more of that, you're going to see Jihaad Campbell become a better player 2 years from now, 4 years from now than he is day one.
I feel like Vic always tells you guys during training camp and even during the season as well, where when they get a new player, he usually just matter-of-factly says, we'll see what he can do, and then we'll try and put him in the best position to succeed. And obviously that makes it sound easier than it probably is, but Vic Fangio just had one of the best seasons from a defensive coordinator that I've ever seen to cap off an amazing career. So I am going to give him the benefit of the doubt on this one. Also, man, he looked very excited walking into that draft room after the Eagles made that pick on the behind the scenes.
Yeah, I would be too if I didn't have to, pay. I'm sorry, you meant Vic Fangio. I was thinking Jihaad Campbell. Yeah, Vic Fangio. You can tell he clearly liked Campbell, and I get it. He scouts linebackers better than almost anyone in the NFL, and what he did with Bond is a testament to his eye for the position. He clearly saw something in Jihaad Campbell. Speaking about a player who's thrived under Vic Fangio, we're going to discuss after this break whether Jalen Carter could become the highest paid defensive player in the NFL. Stay with us. I want to tell everyone about a fun show we have coming up next week. PHLY will be hosting a special NFL schedule release extra show presented by our friends at Philly Sports Trips on Wednesday, May 14th. Coverage kicks off at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time to discuss the 2025-2026 NFL schedule. It's ambitious with 2026, although I suppose the regular season does stretch in the 2026. Philly Sports Trip has that all covered. But tune in, and we will have the schedule release all covered. Tune in to see the PHLY team. So I'll be on with Bo. I believe Anthony might be joining us. We'll see. Reacting to the matchups, the dates, everything you need to know about the schedule for the reigning Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. Again, this NFL schedule extra show will be held on Wednesday, May 14th, beginning at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time.
And Zach, now let's talk about a new sponsor of ours who I am very excited about, and that is Art of Words. And this is a creation by Philadelphia word artist Dan Duffy. And guys, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and Dan really proves it. Each one of these pieces is made entirely from handwritten words. So Dan writes out the words to create a picture of whatever you want, like every Eagle forming the link, every Philly shaping Citizens Bank Park. And guys, it's not just sports. Dan has captured Boathouse Row, Reading Terminal, the Philadelphia skyline, the Jersey Shore, and plenty more. So if you want one of these gifts, they are unforgettable for sports fans, graduations, housewarmings, Mother's Day, Father's Day, really any occasion. And guys, some background on Dan. He started selling art at the K-Lot and Rice's Flea Market, and he credits Philadelphia sports fans for launching his career. Look, he's available for dozens of teams and cities too. He's not just able to do Philadelphia. So there is something for everyone. And his pieces, they're total conversation starters. You'll spot a name, then another, and then soon everyone's reliving their favorite sports memories while looking at his drawings. And guys, Dan has been featured on the Today Show, ESPN, and TED Talks. So if you want to check out Art of Words, check it out at artofwords.com. That's artofwords.com, and use code PHLY at checkout for 15% off your purchase.
So before we dive into some of these Eagles questions, quick non-football question for you. This is non-football question 1. This is from Chonk. What are your food recommendations for a visiting tourist at Reading Terminal Market? Best cheesesteak in the city can be found where? So this is one that I enjoy these types of questions. Rich,
you always love talking about your days going to the Reading Terminal Market, like 10 years ago, right? When you worked near there.
Yeah. So yeah, when I worked at 8th and Market for 7 years at the Inquirer. I'll let you go first because I can jump in for quite a bit here, but you first.
I'm pretty boring, and it's not just because of the fact that they usually hook us up when we have shows at the Reading Terminal Market, but the Knicks roast pork, pretty simple. Just order the roast pork. That's what I'm getting at Reading Terminal Market every single time. They got a nice line right around the counter. They keep it moving, nice efficient operation, even if they have 15 people waiting for their food at all times. But the people at the Knicks, they're the ones I go to right in the middle of Reading Terminal Market.
Yeah, that's a good one there. You can't go wrong with the Knicks. I mean, there are so many things. The great thing about the Reading Terminal Market is that anything you could want, you have there, right? So when Uncle Gus's Steaks, they're from the Knicks. That's a good place to go for cheesesteaks in there. I like El Mercury for some Central American food that you can go with. If you want Peking duck, you can go with Sankey there. There's so many fun places to go. Anything that you're interested in. I like the Amish markets as well. Obviously, Beeler's Donuts. You got to wash it down with ice cream. And so you got Bassett's right there. But then for my favorite cheesesteak in Philly, look, I gotta go. Angelos. Angelo does an awesome job. Danny at Angelos does an awesome job. But I'm in the burbs now, so if I can stretch it out, Johnny's Pizza on Lancaster Avenue. That's a good spot. Highly recommend that. You can work out across the street at F45 and then waste that whole workout by going to Johnny's, and it'll be well worth it.
Tell us more about your life, CB.
Yeah, it's something, I've literally done that before, and Emily says to me, like what was the point of F45, right? When when you just get that cheesesteak. But sometimes there's no line, the cheesesteak's calling, you got to roll with it. No pun intended.
So two more things. I'd also like to give a shout out at Reading Terminal to Sweet Nina's, who has given us the banana pudding before.
Oh,
absolutely delicious. Yeah, it's great. And then as far as favorite cheesesteak, I think I've told this story before, but my high school basketball coach, he's old school, in a lot of ways. So he didn't necessarily,
Speedy Morris?
Yeah. And he didn't always believe in the sports science in every single way. So before games, sometimes before big games, he was kind of like the mayor of Roxborough and Manayunk type area. He would get Del Sandro's delivered for the entire team to eat before a game. So did that actually help the team like during the game? I'm not sure, but I always look forward to it. And
I gotta add Del Sandro's. Chubby's across the street. You get good food in Roxborough for sure. Let's roll back with the Eagles here. And this is general Eagles questions number 1 for you, Andrew. This is from Dave Hinden. On a 1 to 100 scale, what are the chances the Eagles make Jalen Carter the highest paid non-quarterback in football after this season? Your thoughts on that, Rich?
My thoughts are, I'd like your thoughts on that, because I don't really have this encyclopedia of NFL contracts in my head.
So all right, sorry to put you on the spot there. So
all good, buddy.
So when you look at it, the highest paid non-quarterbacks, obviously the wide receiver market has really gone up. When you see the Jamar Chase deal, edge rushers typically are up there. If you go just based on per year, Danielle Hunter's at 27 million per year, but it obviously doesn't have the same length as some other teams do. If you go based on like the total guaranteed, Myles Garrett is at 88 million guaranteed, or I'm sorry, no. So average per year, he's the highest at he's 40 million average per year. Then Jamar Chase 40.25 million, so just edges him out in terms of the highest paid non-quarterbacks. I think Jalen Carter has a shot to push that. I don't think I'm going to go with 75. Obviously, the numbers keep going up, but Myles Garrett's going to be hard to beat. Jamar Chase is going to be hard to beat. I was thinking it's going to have a 3 in front of it, more than a 4 in front of it for the average per year. So I'm thinking if you're saying the highest paid defensive tackle in the NFL, I can definitely see that being the case. Let me pull that up here. And that would be Chris Jones right now is 31.75. Okay. So he's the
highest. Like he can beat that.
Yeah. So I think he can beat that. I think he'll be the highest paid defensive lineman. But if to be the highest paid non-quarterback, you're Myles Garrett, Jamar Chase territory, that has a 4 in front of it. I don't know if he's going to quite have the 4 in front of it, but he'll be in that conversation, which certainly says something about Jalen Carter.
So as we all know, the Eagles are very proactive with these things, especially when they have a core player the caliber of Jalen Carter. When do you expect that extension to get done?
Sometime between March 15th, 2026 and May 15th, 2026.
You think it gets done quickly, right? When they're allowed to do it?
Yes.
I do too.
I think they're going to act quickly on it. I think it's going to be similar to, Jalen Carter and Landon Dickerson and Cam Jurgens and Devontae Smith. Oh, I'm sorry, not Jalen Carter, Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts, Landon, as soon as they're able to do it, I think they act quickly on that one. So let's go to roster questions number 4. This is from Eric D. As of today, if you had to make a prediction, will a running back or a wide receiver that's not currently on the roster be on the Eagles 53?
So I'm going to spin this to you too. The player I'm thinking of is receiver, right? I think that's the position where I feel like, look, they're fine at receiver right now, right? Because they only throw to AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, and Jahan Dotson really just runs routes. Although maybe we get a little bit of a Dotson breakout this year after a couple of catches in the postseason. But after that, it's pretty unproven players. It's Johnny Wilson, Anaya Smith, Terrace Marshall. So do you think that's the position that they might target of the two, or would they go with another running back? Do they think Shipley is not quite enough as the backup, and AJ Dillon and what they have there?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think as it's currently as the roster is currently constructed, I would lean more toward wide receiver here, because now they did add some undrafted receivers. They have Johnny Wilson developing. They have Anaya Smith going in the year 2. They added Terrace Marshall. But I can see if this is a spot that the Eagles look to address, just because you can carry 6. I think there's only 3 that I know for certain will be on the roster right now. So I think there's more room to add than running back. That said, if there's an injury to Shipley, obviously if there's an injury to Barkley, I think that's a position they could address. AJ Dillon is intriguing, but AJ Dillon hasn't played football in over a year. There's some undrafted players in there, but of these two, I think they're more likely to add a wide receiver than a running back. Let's knock out here the roster question number 3. This is from Asher Levy. Lewis Cine is being talked about as an afterthought. He was really good in college and a high draft pick. As a pro, got little play as a rookie, then the injury. Do you think he has untapped potential to make the team and contribute, especially under Christian Parker? So yeah, he's not being discussed often. He is someone who was intriguing coming out of Georgia, number 32 overall pick. And it's a position where there isn't clear, the roster's unclear right now. Makuba is going to be on the team. Blankenship's going to be on the team. You're expecting Sidney Brown to be on the team. Beyond those 3, it's wide open. So I can certainly see Lewis Cine pushing for a roster spot. The Eagles signed him to the 53 before the playoffs last year to have him on the roster for the season. It was not to use him last year. So that shows that they're intrigued by the upside. The flip side to this is that Lewis Cine was on a practice squad for 15 weeks last year, and no one signed him off that Bills practice squad. So he does need to prove it, but this is part of the Eagles strategy in signing these former first round picks and second round picks, is they're going to see if they can get the potential that someone else didn't tap into. So I do think there is untapped potential, to answer the question literally. I do think that he has a chance to push for a spot on the 53. But I think this is a flyer more than anything else.
Look, you know more about Mr. Cine than I do. I would say I would love to see it, just to see one of those 7 and 8 man Georgia defensive units. If he could get on the field, that would be pretty cool. But yeah, because of like the part of the year that they were able to acquire him, I do wonder a little bit like what Buffalo is telling you, keeping him on the practice squad for that entire time, like coming in with probably lower expectations. And if he hits, then it'll be a pleasant surprise.
Let's sneak in one question before we go to our sponsors, and that is a Cowboys question number 1. And this is topical today. For those who missed it, the Cowboys traded for George Pickens from the Pittsburgh Steelers, a talented wide receiver. They gave up a 3rd round pick in the deal. And this question is from Zig. Cowboys question number 1: more likely, Pickens Pro Bowl or Pickens suspended at least 1 game for conduct detrimental to the team in a contract year behind a guy who leads the league in targets?
Why can't it be both?
Yeah.
What do you think of the deal? I mean, Pickens is a guy who's played in a lot of offenses that aren't very dynamic. Really, he's been called upon to make a lot of the big plays. Doesn't get a ton of separation, but obviously has hit a bunch of those big plays, especially last year at the beginning of the year and when Russell Wilson came aboard. But he's a lot, I would say, Zach, and that's what Zig is referring to, where is an emotional guy. There are questions of did Pittsburgh just not want the potential headache going into that contract year? I am going to say that it's more likely that Pickens. I mean, it's pretty easy to make the Pro Bowl now with all the players who end up declining that spot. So, what do you think about it?
I love this trade for Dallas.
Yeah,
I like gambling on talent. You're looking at a 24-year-old who's 6'3", 200 pounds. Year 2 in the NFL, he led the league in yards per reception. He had 63 catches, nearly 1,200 yards, 5 touchdowns. He even last year in a relative down year, playing only 14 games, 59 catches, 900 yards. Okay, his yards. He's a threat when he's on the field. He's a big play guy. I like the body control at that size. Yeah, I mean, this is if you're Dallas, this is absolutely the type of risk worth taking. I think it makes them a better football team. And I understand there's some volatility, and you can talk to me all you want about culture. And I do believe in culture, Sirianni. If you're watching, I agree with everything you're saying about culture. But I also believe in talent, right? And I think that the talent is too appealing here. Going into a contract year, I know CeeDee Lamb gets the ball a lot. CeeDee Lamb's not the only one who's going to get the ball. I think that the Cowboys are a legitimate threat in the NFC East, and I think this makes them a better football team.
Yeah. And I also think that there are going to be 2 times next year where I'm complaining that George Pickens commits offensive pass interference on like a 30-yard catch because he's not open and he pushes off against one of the Eagles quarterbacks. It feels like an old school Dallas move where, they bring in some guy who has a ton of talent, but there are questions about how he fits into a locker room. But yeah, I mean, if you made me guess, like I think he's going to have a productive year. Like I don't think he's going to be a complete bust playing with Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, who takes up a lot of attention. So I'm surprised that the Steelers would move on from him, honestly, just because that's a team that needs to get more dynamic offensively. They bring in DK Metcalf this offseason, but for whatever reason, they said, we're going to get out of the George Pickens business. But for a 3rd round pick, I kind of think it's a good trade for Dallas as well. I agree with you on that.
If you want to know who is most responsible for the Eagles winning the Super Bowl, you're going to want to watch the last 17 minutes of this show. Before we get there, though, we need to tell you about some of our friends. Let's talk about Empire today, because I look at the floor below me right now, and I say that you want quality floors from people who know flooring. And just like your favorite team needs that home field advantage, your home needs a home floor advantage. Empire Today can help you get it. Empire Today is flooring experts. They're dedicated flooring professionals who focus on flooring every single day. We've all been to these box stores where you go aisle to aisle and you don't know what you're looking at, right? And you might be too embarrassed to ask. And then when you do ask, it's someone who really doesn't know what he or she's looking at either. You don't have to worry about that with Empire Today. They live and breathe flooring. They'll help you every step of the way. The floors you step on, they will help you with those floors. With Empire Today, you get clear, upfront, and all-inclusive pricing. Plus, you can schedule installation as soon as the next day. Nobody likes to wait, especially when it comes to quality floors. Schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. PHLY listeners can receive a $350 discount when using promo PHLY. Yes, you heard that right. A $350 discount with code PHLY. Restrictions apply. Visit EmpireToday/PHLY for full details.
And ZB, the summer is right around the corner. It's pretty warm right now in the Delaware Valley. And, you're going to need something that reduces or, something that can handle the sweat underneath your armpits. And one thing that has made me more confident in that is Mando Whole Body Deodorant. Mando is a men's deodorant brand that is hyper-focused on keeping every aspect of a man's body smelling fresh and clean, and we mean every aspect, ZB. So, if you're going on a first date and there's something that's a non-negotiable, you need to pick up some Mando. It is a whole body deodorant that is safe to use anywhere on your body and created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. You can choose from a variety of fresh scents like bourbon leather, Clover Woods, Mount Fuji, or Pro Sport. And Mando is clinically proven to control odor better than a shower with soap alone. So, Mando starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant cream tube, deodorant, 2 free products of your own choice like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. And as a special offer for listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. So, guys, use code PHLY at shopmando.com. That is shopmando.com. And please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando.
I was taking down notes. That's important there. So before we get to
the next already,
pick
up some Mando
question. Let's go to non-football question number 3 here. What's a piece of sports journalism advice? What's a piece of sports journalism from when you were young? So just a piece of sports journalism, not advice, from when you were younger that impacted your career path. Alternatively, if nothing comes to mind, what's your go-to diner breakfast order? This is from Pseudo Risto. So I'm sorry, this is non-football question number 3. So 2 questions.
I love both those questions.
Yeah. So let's hear from you first.
Piece of sports journalism. So what do you think? You thinking like a book or an article or?
Yes,
I would say, there are so many Sports Illustrated articles I used to read. That was my favorite part of the week. This thing called a magazine would get delivered to your home every Wednesday, every Thursday. And I would usually devour that from cover to cover. As far as like books are concerned, I'm trying to think. I'm looking at my bookshelf right now at some of my favorite ones. Jordan Rules was a pretty good one by Sam Smith. Yeah, that was one of the first ones that I would say I read when I was deciding, okay, I think I'd like to do this. But, I would say outside of just one piece of journalism, I read the Philadelphia Daily News every single day. I just thought their sports coverage was excellent from cover to cover. I know you are an Inquirer guy, but that is the family
Daily
business
News guy
for
too.
me. Yeah, you are.
I enjoyed his work. Yes,
they were combined. So it was really just reading those articles just every single day, whether it's my dad, it was Les writing about the Eagles and Damo writing about the Eagles. It was Phil Jasner chronicling the Allen Iverson era of the Sixers, Flyers, Paul Hagen on the Phillies, David Murphy later on the Phillies. So it was more than just one piece. I would say it was more just kind of like reading the Daily News pretty much every day and Sports Illustrated every week. And my go-to diner order is very boring, just scrambled eggs, toast, home fries, or maybe some bacon as well. That's generally what I'm going with at a diner.
Okay. Yeah. So sports journalism, look, we have 11 minutes in the show. I could give you 11 hours on this.
Sure.
Rick Riley in Sports Illustrated was such an influence in like his writing style, his columns. They those were huge influences for me. The Morning Anchor was a story that he did on Bryant Gumbel that really jumps to mind. That when I read that, I was like, oh my God, you can do this with words. And then he actually got me into Jim Murray, who was a columnist at Los Angeles Times. And then I read all Jim Murray's work. I have other Jim Murray books here. There's one up there I couldn't reach in the shot. I devoured all of Jim Murray's columns. So that was huge. And then the Inquirer and Daily News. I used to go to Sixers games, and I would just watch. I would look at press row, and I would be like, "Oh my goodness!" There's Stephen
What
A.
age
Smith
were you?
from probably 7, 8 years old on. I used to watch the sports reporters on Sunday morning, right? And
Sure.
so and then Daily News Live was such a big part of my life when I would get home from school. But I would look at the press row behind the basket, and I'm like,
Sure.
there's Stephen A. Smith, and there's Ashley McGeechee Fox, and there's Phil Jasner, and there's there's Peter Vesey. It's a national game, and Peter Vesey's there, right? And like it was incredible. And so the Inquirer. I used to read the Inquirer over breakfast, the Daily News over lunch, then Sports Illustrated when I got home from school. So I would have to say that. And diner. So look, I'll ask the waitress what she recommends, and then Bo and Sheil will roll their eyes at me. One of my things at restaurants is I don't like to go with things that I'll make at home, right? And diner, like I can make scrambled eggs and toast at home, right? So I would probably go, I can make an omelet at home too. So I suppose I'm being hypocritical, but I would probably go with an omelet if I have to say something there. But I'm not a huge breakfast eater. I don't like to go out to eat for breakfast per se. Like if I'm going out to a diner, make it, make it over dinner or lunch or late night. And I prefer that than the breakfast food. But let's, man.
Do you have a specific diner that you used to go to?
Yeah, Penrose, Melrose. Those are the two
Sure.
that come to mind. The Melrose Diner and the Penrose Diner. What about you?
The Penrose Diner is the one that I was thinking of. There is one. My girlfriend and I, her family, they have a house, like an old cabin in the Catskills. We've been going to the Phoenicia Diner a couple times a year, though. Good little spot.
Nice. When I was in DC, there was a place in Adams Morgan called the Diner. And I used to go there, and I used to go there after I would get home from work around 1 a.m. I would go to the diner, and I would get it was like a bourbon bread pudding with vanilla ice cream on it. And I would sit at the bar at the diner, and like I would reward myself. If I had a good story, I would reward myself with that bread pudding with vanilla ice cream on it. It was the diner in Adams Morgan. I would do that. Everyone else in Adams Morgan was like going to the bars. I'm pulling up to the diner. I'm sitting there. Everyone there's drunk or whatever, and I'm like, I just wrote about Emilio Bonifacio on the Washington Nationals. Okay. And Manny Acta said this, and Jim Riggleman said that, and I liked my lead tonight. I just saw Garrett Mock throw 5 innings. I worked that into the story, and so I'm going to reward myself here with a bourbon bread pudding. So yeah, I got guilty as charged with that.
I'm laughing at you, but that's nice. That's nice. It's the simple pleasures in life. Like you felt rewarded from the story you wrote. So I am laughing because it is kind of funny with all of the, I have been in that Adams Morgan area, which is kind of crazy at night. Yeah, for sure. But I'm laughing, but I also think that's nice. I just want to say that I'm not Emilio Bonifacio writing a good game story about him, that there's something to be celebrated about that for sure.
I think authenticity is important, and like lean into who you are, man. And that's so I don't try to pretend that I'm someone I'm not. I love dessert at diners. I'm not typically someone who you see stumbling around drunk at 1 a.m., but I am someone looking for a good dessert as a nightcap. All right. This is General Eagles question number 3. Everywhere you turn, you see people saying that the Eagles players, coaches aren't top 5, 8 in the league. And yet somehow this mediocre team won the Super Bowl. So if you had to rank which 5, 10 players or coaches are most responsible for the Super Bowl winning season in order, what's that list? This is from it's from Darren Noya. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. So you don't have to give me 5 or 10, but maybe the 3 people you think are most responsible here.
It's hard because it was such a loaded team, right? Who do you give the most credit to? If we're just limiting it to players and coaches, obviously, like if you made me pick, Howie Roseman is the most responsible for the Super Bowl. It's hard to weigh whether the players or coaches are making more of an impact. I definitely think the two coaches that made the most impact are the defensive coordinator and the offensive line coach. And that's no disrespect to Nick Sirianni. It's just kind of the way I look at it. In terms of players, I mean, I don't want to set Deniz off and give Saquon all of the credit. I think Jalen Carter is definitely one of those first few names, right? And it's not just because of it's not just because of the Super Bowl, because the Super Bowl, everybody else had a great game because the Chiefs said, we're not going to let you beat us, but it's also because of all of the snaps he played during the season. It's because of the biggest play of the playoffs, in my opinion, that third down play against the Rams where he gets to the quarterback and it looks like they're going to score. So he would be number one. Let's go Vic Fangio, number two. And I'll say Saquon Barkley, number three.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess I have to put Howie in here. And I don't want to disrespect Nick. It's, I feel like Jason Kelsey in his Super Bowl speech, like it's not one guy, right? Like it's and he's like, it's all of us, right? And
it is. It's Jalen Hurts too. Like if you want to put him first, I get that too.
But I'm a players person here, so I'm gonna go with three players, and I'm gonna go with Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley. I guess. I mean, I would say AJ Brown, but I need to go with the line of scrimmage, so I guess I'll go Lane Johnson. But then but Zach Bond was the defensive player of the year candidate.
Bond was unbelievable.
Yeah,
tied everything together.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I'm gonna go Lane. I'm gonna go Lane Johnson. I'm gonna go Lane Johnson, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley. How about that? But man, this is a tough one here. This is real tough. And then I mean, look, Nick Sirianni's the head coach of the team. I see Big Dom in the chat.
Sure.
I've literally spoken to people in there who say that they don't win that without Big Dom. AJ Brown said that they're not in the Super Bowl without Howie Roseman. Jeffrey Lurie is so important to the organization. Like I don't think fans fully appreciate the importance of like competent ownership in professional sports. So there are so many options here. It is a good question, and if I can shamelessly say, there's a book coming out on September 23rd called Leap Year, which delves into a lot of these characters that made the team special. So let's get one here. Let's go General Eagles question 3. General Eagles question 5 before the break here, and it's from SHART Gallery. Okay, I don't want to drop. And this is, if you could guarantee an honest and direct answer from Howie or Nick, what question would you ask?
Well, let's hear it.
I'm curious your thought first.
Genuine question. If you could guarantee an honest and direct answer from Howie or Nick, what question would you ask? Well, when I think about Howie and Nick, I would love to know. Yeah, I would love to know the order of events from last offseason. Like, what was that week and a half in between the Eagles losing in Tampa and them finally announcing that Nick Sirianni is coming back? What was it like? And I'm sure maybe the answer was we were pretty sure Nick was going to come back the whole time, but we had to get all of our ducks in order. But I would love like a day-by-day breakdown of how that went, and maybe was there any interest in looking outside? I remember there was a little Bill Belichick talk at the time, which is kind of interesting in retrospect. But basically, for both of those guys, what was that week like? What was your confidence that you were going to be back? That's basically what I would go with.
If you want to find out my answer to this, you're going to have to tune in to Overtime. Yeah, so I'm going to go with, look, I guess related to last year, I want to know from Howie the nature of the call to Bill Belichick. You know,
Yes.
after the season. You know, with Nick, I guess I would want him to give like a real specific explanation for what he thought happened in 2023. I've spoken to him generally, but and he gets to a point and then he stops, right? And like he'll say like he doesn't need to get into all of that. I want to know what specifically deteriorated there, why it deteriorated, what he saw that led to it. But honestly, I gotta say, like, you know, if I have an audience with Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni and they have truth serum, like I'm not at, you know, I'm really trying to get like I'm trying to get perspective that they're not going to give in any other situation. So I would want like Howie, I would want Howie to give the tell all about the end of the Chip Kelly era, that 2000 and 15 year, like just give me everything about 2015. Like, and I've spoken about what he's learned. I've spoken about what he's done, but I want like the truth, like, how did that fall apart with Chip Kelly? That probably that. So I know that's a bygone question, but yeah, that this is interesting, and yeah, I would love if truth serum was a part of journalism, and like you can just get the unvarnished truth. Let's knock out a few more in overtime here.
One more now that I think about it. Just if you're talking to Nick Sirianni, just saying Jalen Hurts, discuss. Like what do you actually think of Jalen Hurts? What's this relationship been like behind the scenes? I would love to know that.
Yeah. Good. That is a good one. Let's go with just as a real quick one. I can answer it in in 3 words. We have to get to this. Speaking of Bill Belichick here, this is General Eagles question number 6. Stork rank who you think is the youngest out of Quinyon Mitchell, Keely Ringo, and Jordan Hudson. So the youngest in that group is Keely Ringo. Did you know Keely Ringo is younger than Quinyon Mitchell? Okay. He's also younger
than Jordan
Hudson.
Hudson.
Quinyon Mitchell is number 2 on this list. Quinyon Mitchell's in the middle, and Jordan Hudson narrowly is the oldest one in this on this list. She narrowly beats out Keely Ringo. But
well, when you put it that way,
yeah. I read yesterday morning. I read a good chunk of Bill Belichick's book, and I got to say there's only among Eagles references there. Only the Super Bowl that he beat the Eagles in, not the Super Bowl that he lost the Eagles in. You would think in a book you'd get into the game that he lost, but no, that did not come up in Bill Belichick's book. Maybe the sequel, but there were some good lessons in that book. You know what? There's so many good questions here. I'm gonna take some, and we know Bo's not gonna agree to a mailbag episode, so I'm gonna take some of these questions and I'm gonna turn them into a mailbag on allphly.com. Let's knock out 2 more quickly. Here, this is one from Gary. This is general football question number 3. And I picked this one because this was actually in a YouTube comment. So please leave comments on YouTube for all the show, for our shows. I read every single one of them. Criticism, I take it. I learn from it. Praise, I appreciate it. Feedback, always interested in it. This is from Gary Walensky. In the lead up to the 2025 draft, did any teams reach out to Fran for his analysis of a certain player? This is what I can say. Fran Duffy's extraordinarily respected by scouts in the NFL. That is, and Fran's work is read, is consumed. And I'll say this, like I can't speak for Fran, but I can speak as a reporter. A big part of source building and source maintaining is not just the taking, but the giving. And what I mean by that is like if you have something you can offer them, like they're more interested in speaking to you, right? And so in my case, that's information. Like if there's information, a source is more apt to want to talk to me. And like in Fran's case, a big part of that is like his analysis. So like I got to imagine that teams aren't saying, like Fran, help us put our draft board together. But in conversations Fran might be having, it's like, hey, what do you think of this player? And then they'll ask Fran, what do you think of this player? Right? Because this is what scouts do. And Fran's a scout. He's our draft analyst, but he's a scout and a reporter, and he does a fantastic job of that. Is there a question you wanted to knock out here? Before we close out.
Let's look at the non-football questions.
Yeah, those are, I mean, Bo would probably be upset that I haven't gone as much into the non-football questions here. There's so many good football questions, but yeah, the non-football questions are always fun.
Let's do number 4 in the non-football questions. Peckness migrate. Your typing skills, your observation skills, or your listening skills.
So I'm gonna go with my my listening skills. I am going to nest, okay, because I think it's so important to be a good listener. There are times on the show when I'm preparing for an ad read, I might not be listening intently enough, but I think one of my skills as a reporter is like I genuinely listen to the answers to questions, right? And so like I'm not just there saying I want to ask this and this. Like I'm synthesizing what they say, and and the same thing when I in conversations with people. Like I think I'm a good listener. So that number one, I'll go observation skills. I will peck that, and then typing skills. If I can't type, I suppose I can speak into the phone. So I guess I would migrate that, but those are important for me.
So I'll flip it around. I would definitely nest my listening skills. My typing skills, I'm going to peck, and I'm going to migrate my observation skills. I am not the body language doctor. People always tell me,
yeah,
no, I'm not. I'm not. And I do not always pick up on facial cues and all of those things. So I will migrate that one.
And then Mike Y also said, water gun to your toe, how many more years could you realistically see Fangio coaching before he retires?
How old is he right now?
Vic Fangio, 60. Right now he is, I think, 68. Yeah, so he was 66. Sorry, Vic, I aged you a bit. 66.
I think like the round number would be like 5 more years, but the thing is, he could really bolster his resume over this stretch where you never know when you're going to get this super talented defense. And I think it also helps that he's doing it close to home, close to his family, and also for the team that he grew up rooting for as well. I'm going to say 5 years is probably the most he would go, but like let's say they win a couple more Super Bowls, and it's because in large part they have a dominant defense. Could he keep going? Yeah, I could see that. I mean, the guy loves coaching football.
Yeah. Let's get him to 70 and then go from there.
Yeah.
Right. So let's say conservatively 4 more years. Maybe that's aggressively, but that's a good question, and it's one the Eagles have to be thinking about as well. There were many good questions here today. I'm sorry we did not get to all of them. I promise you, at some point the next, let's say 3 to 5 days, I will round out these questions with a mailbag. I just got it writing to do tonight after a PHLY responsibility this afternoon I have to tend to. But great news for our audience tomorrow.
The best host in the city.
The best host in the city, Bo Wolf, returns. I imagine he's got things on his mind other than changing diapers that he is ready to discuss. So I can't wait. Rich, it's been awesome doing the show with you. It's been awesome doing the shows with Fran. It's been awesome doing the shows with Jamie. But
we need Bo back.
Yeah, look, Bo's the best host in the city. Let's get him back. I think the shows are too organized as they are right now. We need some nonsense thrown in just for the audience. So so let's get rolling there with Bo. I will be in studio with Bo tomorrow at 2 p.m. catching up. Make sure that you are rating, subscribing, liking, commenting, everything under the sun. I was remiss to say I did not mention it earlier. June 14th, we got the PHLY Liberty Open. You're gonna want to sign up for that. It's a Valley Brook Country Club. It's at 2 p.m. A shotgun start. A shotgun start, by the way, means everyone starts at the same time. In case you were curious, that is important. And then I got to give a shout out to our PHLY Sixers crew. Monday is the lottery. So Rich, what do you guys have planned for Monday's coverage?
Well, we're going to have a show live. Yeah. Did you see the NHL lottery the other night?
I was listening. I was watching the show. I was watching the show. Yeah, I was watching. I was not watching. I was watching Charlie and Bill, or listening to Charlie and Bill and Kelly. Yeah.
Well, they did it live. Obviously, Charlie, Bill, and Kelly did the show live, but they did the actual drawing of the lottery balls live. That was the NBA should absolutely do that. Although the NBA does draw 4 different combos, so we might be there for a little while, because if you know, sometimes in the behind the scenes room, the same team gets picked over and over again. I could see how that could get a little tedious. That was electric television, though. The NHL, like the Flyers, they drew 4 balls, and I believe there were 11 remaining, and the Flyers had 2 balls that would have given them the first overall pick. So you're waiting to see if they would get a 4 or a 6. Alas, they did not get a 4 or 6, but man, it was a lot of fun to watch. So, we will have a show at the same time, and we also will have an event like the Flyers crew did at the PHLY studios. So for any diehard Sixers fans, come on, hang out. We're going to have a bunch of food and drink as well. We'll either celebrate or commiserate at the Sixers and what happens in the lottery. 64% chance they keep the pick. So that's basically what we got going on next Monday. And if you want to do that, it's on the events page on allphly.com.
Also, one of my favorite things every morning is when Rich Hofmann's newsletter comes into the mailbox. So make sure you're subscribed to Rich's newsletter. So much good stuff going on here at PHLY. We will be back tomorrow. Thank you to Andrew for producing the show. Thank you to Rich, as always, for being a terrific part of our Eagles coverage. Thank you to you for watching, listening, commenting, subscribing, downloading, all of that. As Bo would say, as always, we love you. As I will say, we'll be better tomorrow. Thank you for watching.
We all silly like the mayor.